From the Swift Quake to the Swift mob. Hello, OBLers. Thanks again for joining for yet again another episode. Of course, I appreciate you. I hope that you appreciate me. I hope you appreciate the community. And here we are. So Taylor Swift has always been a fan favorite. I mean, she's been around really since 2004, 2006, somewhere in there is when the professional timeline started for her. And here we are nearly 20 years later, and it just seems like she is really at the peak of her influence and at the peak of her game. I missed out on being able to see Taylor perform in the first leg of the Eras tour. However, to my surprise, I didn't know that there would be a second leg of the Eras tour. And fortunately, it looks like I've snagged myself a ticket for 2024. So I'm really looking forward to that. And I have to be honest, when it comes to Swift, I mean, I was not necessarily swept off my feet by Swift. I just kind of saw her prior to the last maybe couple of years as just another artist that was out there. There wasn't really anything that I found that was particularly compelling about her. I do remember this interview I saw that featured the late, great Aretha Franklin, and it was one of the Queen of Soul's last interviews, and she was being asked a litany of questions about different performers like Alicia Keys, and I think she had to give a rapid-fire response, and Aretha said, "Oh, a talented young singer." And then they asked about another artist, and she said something else that was along the lines of the craft. And then they said, "Taylor Swift." And Aretha said, beautiful gowns, and just kind of deadpan. And that reaction did not go unnoticed. Whereas you had the Queen of Soul giving all of these other accolades for one's music and talent to Alicia Keys and other folks. But then when they asked about Taylor Swift, all she could say was beautiful gowns. And, you know, I just never really thought much about her, although I did like Blank Space. Like, I always found that song, I just liked it. Just kind of a banger, especially if you like put it on lo-fi and just kind of get in the right mood. It's like, yeah, like I'm really feeling that. But I guess along the way, I did end up getting swept off my feet by Swift, or at least I'm in the process of that because it's just grown on me. I really discovered her lyrics. I teach English, and I didn't know that her lyrics were as sophisticated as they are. And yeah, so she really just hooked me just based on that. And then, of course, when it comes to her shows, like you would know if you're a Swiftie, just how phenomenal her shows are. And I have now learned that she is at a really high level when it comes to just giving a fantastic show. And I just can't wait to see it. It's even gone to where I've even quoted from Swift's lyrics, and that's inside of my first book, White Girl Within. So I'm just really kind of looking forward to it. And apparently so are a lot of other folks, to the point to where when she was in LA, and I think that was the last leg of the first round or the last show in the first leg of the Eras tour, where there was so much noise and movement being made by all the Swifties in concert that literally it's like the earth was moving, was shaking. And so they called it a Swift Quake. And it's like, wow. And it's like really odd that not too long after that, there literally was a 5.1 earthquake that did happen in Southern California, just like weeks after Swiftie was there, after the Swifties and Taylor Swift was there. So that is lingering. But you know, all of that momentum, all of that entropy has now followed Swift when she's off the clock, when she's not working. So you may have heard that Swift has been mobbed. She was attending a wedding in New Jersey, I think it was. So she was there with some other A-listers and doing what you do when you go to weddings. I don't know if you've been to a lot of weddings. I've been to weddings growing up, of course. I've been invited to weddings as I've got older. I was even a best person in a wedding for a then close friend, and I've been asked to do that twice, and I've actually have done it once. So it was really something special, you know, that you are a part of when you're invited to do that. And so it was no different for Swift. And I'm sure that you all can tell me stories about cool weddings. And I can also tell you about some really cool wedding vows that I heard one time. I think they were the best wedding vows I've ever heard. This is when I was with an ex-girlfriend, and we went to her friends. It was her fellow doctors. They were getting married, and the vows went something like, I don't own you. You don't own me. I want you. You want me. We're here doing this. It was like the most like equitable sort of wedding vows that I had ever heard. And I was blown away by that. And I had thought, you know, if I ever do get married, I don't know if that's quite hard to be in this life, but if I were to ever do that, or if not married, but just like making some kind of a serious declaration to my partner, I would love to have some vows similar to that. And I don't know what you feel like or what you think you might do. Let me know. Put that in the description. What kind of wedding vows do you think that you would want to have, or what kind of just relationship vows, partner vows, period, would you might want to say? I would be interested in hearing that. But with Swift, it was like she was just there to see her friends off and to enjoy a festive event. And then, of course, she's mobbed and she's overwhelmed by it. And this shouldn't be new, because we just said that Swift has been around for like almost 20 years. And then, of course, the lead up before she really took off in her career. So she's not unfamiliar with having a lot of people around. And especially, too, Swift was really applauded for, at the last second, deciding not to allow for a young fan to come up on stage and to be seen before millions. She did call someone up previously, but then she's like, oh, nope, just kidding. And it was the right move so as to protect the younger person. So there's nothing new in this way, but I was responding to a question about why is it that Taylor Swift, why was she mobbed? You know, and what does that say about us? And, you know, I thought about it, and I kind of feel like, well, Swift, she's a part of what the last century rock star was like, where there's pandemonium. So like in the tradition of the Beatles, in the tradition of Elvis, in the tradition of Michael Jackson, in the tradition of a Madonna, but even more so, I would say more like an Elvis or a Michael Jackson, or maybe like a Frank Sinatra, Rat Pack, Sammy Davis, you know, folks like that. I think she is kind of the last stalwart to embody that, even though she's, you know, still young, but yet she's old enough to have a near 20-year career. So she's grown to this point to where she's like planetary in her influence. She's also like spanning generation gaps. Like you can be old enough to remember her emerging onto the scene, so you're of a certain age, and then yet you might really have just gotten in to Swift. And even though, you know, I've been around for a little bit, and I would have, and I do effectively remember Swift emerging onto the scene, but she wasn't, like I said, really onto my radar. It wasn't really until just the last handful of years that I guess she's just grown on me. So it can even happen at different stages, but just wherever it is that you are, Swift, I think, kind of can project to people their life stage, their life phase, and what they're interested about. And we are on the other side of a pandemic, or at least we're trying to be, because things are spiking again, and we're still traumatized from that collectively. Many of us are grappling with high inflation. Like everything is so much more expensive. Housing prices, people are more violent. I just saw this title to an article that said that, you know, Americans, we've forgotten how to behave. And it's not just because of the pandemic. We just have forgotten. We all need some charm school. We all need to like just max up in a number of ways, not just looks max, but we need to polite max. We just need to work on a number of things. And maybe Swift is a person that personifies grace, like she didn't bring on that little girl when she could have, but she protected her. You know, when she was cut off by Kanye years ago, she demonstrated grace when it came to that. This whole notion with the cryptocurrency and all this stuff that's happening right now with Alameda and all this, she didn't do that. She wasn't like caught up in some sort of celebrity scandal in that way. So it's like there's grace that Swift projects, and at the same time, plenty of vulnerability. I mean, her songs are about triumphing through relationship struggles, relationship challenges, identity challenges. So she can be just as much relatable in the way of I struggle, you struggle, we struggle. How do we get through this? But then yet a role model at the same time, just as well. And Swift is maturing, but still plenty young enough. And she was at a really happy event, like a wedding. And so all of that combined, I think, is like really attractive, let alone if you're experiencing some withdrawals because of just a phenomenal concert experience. So there's that. So those are just some of my thoughts in terms of why Swift would be mobbed and why the notion of her being mobbed would make news at this point. I think that there is a different angle to look at, especially in a kind of a post-pandemic situation. And also when there's a lot of mental health issues that we have. You know, so many people can be distracted now, and you just go to your own platform. You know, you just go to your own feed. You go to your own phone, whatever it is, your MacBook, and just kind of get lost in your own echo chamber, your own ecosystem. But Swift, I think, is still kind of like the collective ecosystem, the collective cultural chamber, if you will, for all of us or many of us to just kind of connect with. But we have to remember that she is indeed still a person and still is entitled to her own privacy and entitled to enjoy a festive event with close friends and close family and to actually to be off the clock. So here we're getting into some work-life balance. And as you know, here on Our Best Letters, I mean, we're always talking about what kinds of letters, proverbial letters or actual literal letters that we're sending out to the world for them to see how we behave, how we act, how we can get better. And if you're like trying to grapple with some work-life balance, I would love to talk to you about that, help you to devise a plan, help you to get your boundaries set. So check me out, RonnieGladden.com. Check out the book, WhiteGirlWithin.com, where Taylor Swift is mentioned actually a couple of times. And just hit me up and just let me know about that. But again, I would love to hear more about you. Also, if you're going to go to the second leg of the Eras tour, put that in the chat too. I would love to know where, which city, and like when you would be going. And yeah, I'm pretty stoked about it. I mean, I'm actually it's still like well over a year away by the time I would go, but you know, nevertheless, like I said, I'm pretty happy about it. But that's really it for today. Just wanted to touch base with you on that. Hope all is well. You be well. Enjoy what you enjoy, but also respect boundaries just the same too. Hope to hear from you soon. Leave a like, comment, all of that stuff like that. And of course, send me a letter. All right, later.